Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. 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 Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Mr. Shipman's class. I'm Dr. Terrence Shipman, and I'm here with the wonderful and beautiful Miss Prudence Williams.
Hello, world. How are y'all doing out there? Today, Dr. Shipman,
Yes,
how
ma'am.
are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, just simply great today.
Well, Dr. Shipman, we want to remind everybody that they can always find out more about you and what we do at terrenceshipman.com. They can also find out about you and more about what we do on the various social media platforms. We have Terrence Shipman on Facebook, Terrence Shipman on Twitter, Terrence Shipman on Instagram, Terrence Shipman on LinkedIn, Terrence Shipman on YouTube.
On YouTube, yes. YouTube.
Any others? I think I got them all.
I think you got them all.
So please take time, if you have time, to come and check us out and like us and share.
Yes, and subscribe. Please subscribe.
Oh, yes. So today, Dr. Shipman, I wanted to talk to you about something. Our school has been in for about a month. Mm-hmm. And at the school I teach at, we have a very large population of ESOL students, and that is English to speakers of other language, and we have a large population of English language learner students. Now, both classes of students, both categories of students are students who either don't speak any English or speak limited or developing English.
Right.
And I just want to talk today about the difficulties that come from teaching students who do not speak English. And I want to preface this whole conversation with, I love my ESOL and ELL students. They are delightful. I like watching how hard they work. I welcome them. But as a teacher, my heart breaks for them. So this is no way, anyway, an insult to any immigrant who's coming in and trying to learn. This is, I want the world to be aware when you vote on legislation, what you are doing to a child. All right, so do you have any students or have you ever had any students who do not speak the language?
I have always had students who didn't speak the language. I think since my very first year teaching, I've had Hispanic, Indian students,
Croatian.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
Croatian. And I mean
Eastern Europeans.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a globe, this famous globe that we're always talking about. And I have about 20 plus countries circled on the globe. Each circle represents where a student is from or where their parents were from. Because sometimes I had parents who couldn't speak the English.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Yeah. And I had little 5 or second graders trying to interpret to their parents what I'm talking about in a parents' conference.
Yes. So my very first teaching position was in Athens, Georgia. Go Georgia Bulldogs!
Bulldogs.
At Clark Middle School. And it was really a very wonderful experience. I love it. I'm still in contact with quite a few of my students there. But I remember we were zoned for the campus housing. And what we ended up with were very, very bright, very, very capable students whose parents came from all over the world. So I had students, I remember my first year, I had a student from Ethiopia who spoke no English. And I had a student from Croatia who spoke no English. I had several students whose parents were from India, and they spoke very little English, but they were very bright and very well read and very eager to learn because their parents were professors at the University of Georgia. It comes to a point where you really want to help them, and most people think that a teacher can just go to Google, pop in whatever you're going to do, and put translator over it, and translate whatever the lesson is into the student's home language. But I'm doing this because one of the things I'm running in this year, I have probably 10 in my classes alone, just the ones I work with personally. 10 kids who are gifted who are not proficient in English. And even with that, they're still gifted and in advanced classes and do fairly well. And parents or people who do not understand the education industry say, well, why don't you just put it in Google Translator and give it to them? And I need the world to know, in most states, you cannot translate for them.
You're right. You can't. And the other problem is this. I want the world to know this. Most kids who don't speak English don't have internet at home.
Right.
And some of them might not even have power at home or limited electricity at home.
Or they're living with distant relatives. They moved into the country. They're being sponsored by someone. And they're not very close to the family. So even if they do have the electricity and the internet, it's not per se their family's home.
Right.
They are guests in someone else's home.
Like I had a teacher this week, and they said something about homework and having the students do their computers on homework. And I had to tell the teacher, I said, hey, I want you to realize, even though your students are telling you they have internet at home, they don't. And the teacher was like, well, they can just use their data on their mom's phone. I said they might not have data on the phone.
And if they do, that becomes very, very expensive.
Yes.
And if you're new to the country and you're not a professor's child or another high need, high tech or high industry field, then your parents don't make that kind of money for you to be sucking up data and running up a bill.
Yeah.
So I guess my whole purpose of this was to say to people who look at that and say very unattractive things, these kids are some of my hardest workers. They want to be productive. They want to be here. They want to give America their all. And I just need you to understand, when you run into kids and you see the studies about kids not speaking English and them maybe lowering the test score average, because it's real. We test them in a language they don't understand.
That's true.
And so their test scores generally are not the greatest. And I need you to understand that these kids are working very hard. They want the best for themselves and their family and their country. And that's the United States. And so I feel like we must really give them a little bit more than we do now. So if you ever get an opportunity to influence legislation, that would be a great place to start. Because so let me be honest. I didn't know when I first started teaching that you couldn't translate for them. I translated everything for them.
Yeah.
I went and found the books, the worksheets in the other language, and gave them to him. And I was called into the office, and the principal was like, I guess we should have told you. You can't do that. I didn't get in trouble. I was just informed. I was like, oh, I didn't know. And I started asking the questions. So how do you teach it? And they were like, well, they go to their ESOL class, and they're learning coping skills and strategies for mastering the English language so they can learn it. I said, okay, I get that. But how do I, their science teacher, teach them if they don't speak my language? And there were no responses. There was no answer.
It gets to be real hard. I remember last year when I taught English, language arts. And I had a student who was limited in what he can do. So he was always trying to type in translation on his computer, but sometimes the computer just got too slow or he couldn't understand everything I was doing. I had to pair him up with a student who can translate for him, and sometimes that got to be a problem because the other student got tired of doing it all the time. So it becomes a struggle. You really have to just be patient and continue to work with that student as the year go along.
Yes, I currently have a student who's been in the country 3 weeks. She speaks no English. And I swear I lose her every day. Our building is huge.
Yeah.
It is one floor, but it's 5 sections. And she doesn't read, nor does she speak English. And she gets lost, and we run into the same thing. none of the kids really knew her. And nobody from her country is in the school. And nobody who speaks her language is in the school. So she's really lonely. And that kind of made me want to have this discussion. It's a lonely existence.
It is.
I'm just asking the people out there, encourage your children to be supportive, American English speaking only children. And if you're a person who has children who speak bilingual, encourage them to be supportive. When you hear about the stories of kids coming into the country and families, be supportive. Most people want to learn the language. If you've ever taken a Spanish, French, Italian course, learning a second language is difficult.
It is. I remember one experience when I taught kindergarten. I had 2 students from Bosnia.
Wow.
And I think it was at a time when they just had the Civil War. And so they came in. The parents spoke limited in English. The kids basically didn't speak in at all. 2 5-year-olds. That year was challenging, but we made it work. I think coming in so young helped them out because they were kindergartens. So they were sponges taking in everything that we did. And learning the alphabet, learning the sounds, the numbers. It was, even though they didn't speak English, this helped them out so much. But it was still, I could imagine, the little boy cried just about every day for almost 3 weeks. The little girl took on the class a little bit easier, but they had each other, so that worked out a lot. That
they were twins?
No, they weren't twins. They were just friends.
Okay.
They weren't even related. So that helped out a great deal in getting them used to being in my kindergarten class. But I can just imagine, you teach what grade, Ms. Williams?
I teach 8th grade. This young lady is in the very beginning of puberty. She's pretty. The boys are trying very hard to like her. But as I watch it, it's hard. She has no way of knowing what anybody is saying. And, like I said, she gets lost in the building. She can't read English. She can't even read her schedule. She couldn't the first day. They printed a nice little schedule. And it's been really a challenge just trying to get her to lunch. Because we're in a middle school. They kind of go their own way when the bell rings. Nobody's there to hold her hand and get her where she needs to be. But I am very optimistic that she'll have a great year. I know that I've been blessed and fortunate to go outside the United States a few times. Not a lot, but a few times. And my heart goes out to her. My U.S. dollar speaks English for me when I leave this country. Most people want the U.S. dollar. It has a lot of international value. So people quickly learn to speak my language when I leave my country. I recognize the blessing in that and the privilege in that. And so I try to be a little bit more patient and a little bit more kind and a little bit more open-minded when students come in from other countries and can't speak the language. And so I just want new teachers, people from other countries, people from the United States. I want the whole world to recognize that is something that teachers also address. 99.9% of teachers are really patient because we recognize these are kids really wanting to just learn. But yeah, we want the world to be a lot more patient too.
We do. It's hard. I think it's hard in not elementary, middle school. It's
and
very
high school.
hard. And high school. Oh, high school it would be horrible. But the elementary, I think, is much easier, especially if they're younger. But we really have to work on making these students comfortable. I still have kids this year and who have problems speaking, but they're coming along. They are. And we only been in school for about a month now, but I can see the progress.
Well, to end it on a positive note, in the same subject, I like to send a shout out to our illustrator, Mr. Milan Risic, who lives in Serbia.
Yes.
I've said this before, we've never met him. We communicate solely through the internet, and it's been a wonderful journey. But I think that if we ever get to meet Milan, whether he comes to America or we go to Serbia, the language barrier may be real. He writes very well in English.
He does.
I'm not even sure. Does he speak English? Are you sure? Do you know?
I think he speaks English.
Do you think? I think he reads and writes English. I don't know if he speaks it. We have got to find that out, Dr. Shipman.
You know, I will email him tonight and find out.
Because it is really interesting that the ability to read and write English come well before the ability to speak it. Mm-hmm. And I understand that. I took a couple of years of Spanish, and I got pretty good at writing and reading Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
I don't speak it very well. So again, Dr. Shipman, I just wanted to thank you for indulging me today and allowing us this topic. This was something that's been on my heart for the last 3 weeks as I've worked with students who don't speak English, but are some of my hardest working kids who want to do well, who desire to learn, who desire to prosper in their lives. And I just wanted to give a shout out to those families all over the world who are doing that. So thank you for indulging me with this today.
Well, you know, it's no problem at all. I want to say my challenge again. This is my third show I'm making this challenges. To all the countries out there that are listening to us and cities. Now, this you're going to have a special code. Your code will just say blue. Okay? Email me and say blue in what country you are from.
Or city.
And I will send you an autographed copy of the book, the new book, Mr. Shipman's Kindergarten Chronicles, The First Day of School, which has been doing fantastic. I want to give a big shout out to my Tuskegee folks. That's the big Tuskegee University in Tuskegee, Alabama. I want to say I posted something on Facebook this week to many of the Facebook groups that are Tuskegee related. You all took us the book shot up the charts. You all went to buying the book, the paperback, the hardback. Hey, I need a few people to buy their audio though, serious. You all did super. Our numbers went straight up.
Thank you. Hey, my brother's an alumni of Tuskegee University. It was a great school.
In Hampton and West Georgia and Clark, Atlanta, your days are coming. I will post something later on those groups later this week. But again, I want to say thank you to everyone who listens to us because I constantly look at the numbers and I try to look at all the different countries that we are heard in.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Shipman, I'm so impressed. I mean, we've hit every continent, hadn't we?
Every continent except the big ice one.
Yeah, and I'm not too worried about the big ice one, But every continent, that's so beautiful.
It is. Well, in closing, Ms. Williams, is there any last words you want to say?
I want to remind the whole world that you can always check us out and see what Prudence Williams looks like and what Dr. Shipman looks like and hear our song and look at our merchandise on TerrenceShipman.com. And that is TerrenceShipman.com, TerrenceShipman.com. And you can check us out on all the social media networks, searching Terrence Shipman, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Anything else?
Twitter.
And Twitter. I always forget the Twitter. I don't tweet, whatever it's called. But look us up, send us a message, give us some comments, answer some of our questions, engage with us. We love you out there, world.
And in closing, as I do every week, I want to say you are special.
Yes, you are.
You are smart.
Yes, you are.
And you are somebody.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, and we'll see you next time on Mr. Shipman's class.
Bye.
Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class. 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 Mr. Shipman's class, Mr. Shipman's class.